What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week 28 preview. And you know what? Let's just get straight into it. So let's start with captaincy. And it's an interesting week. I think most people will go with Haaland as normal, and that's absolutely reasonable. I'm just not sure he's a no-brainer pick this week. I think he's very good and arguably the best pick, but I don't know if he's the standout best pick, if that makes sense. Like, if you wanted to take a punt, you've got Salah against West Ham at home, Bruno Fernandes against Palace at home, maybe even Thiago against Burnley away. I think some people will look at that. But with Haaland, I'm not quite sure what to make of how that Leeds game will go. Like, on the surface of it, Leeds' defence hasn't been that great this season. 1.51 expected goals conceded is not exactly a watertight defence. But when you look at their home record, it's been much better. But also, they haven't played Man City at home. So will that home record look a little bit worse once Man City rock up to town? Possibly. My gut feeling is this will go one of two ways. Either Haaland will blank and they'll have him completely locked down, or he'll get like 3 or 4 returns. Obviously, there's a scenario where he only gets 1 or 2 returns. That is possible. It could happen. But I feel like he's either going to blank or go big. And for that reason, I'm just quite tempted to captain him. Like, he's just a solid pick this week. I mean, to try and justify the alternative, Salah is really difficult to do. The main justification for Salah is massive differential and West Ham at home. But in terms of how he's playing, like, he's only got 1 double-digit haul all season, a 10-pointer. That's it. He hasn't scored for ages. He just got subbed on the 76th minute. Now, do I think that's a sign of things to come? Not necessarily, but it's not a good sign either. So, if you've got... I would not be bringing Salah in just to captain him. I think the Haaland to Salah switch just looks even worse than it did last week now because of that early sub. But if he's already in your team and you want to take a punt, I don't hate it because of the fixture. With Bruno Fernandes, if we were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago, I think people would be way more interested in captaining Fernandes because he'd been so consistent playing in this number 10, Man United looking good under Carrick. But the last 2 games against West Ham and Everton, Man United have really struggled to break them down. And if Palace defend deep, it could just be the same thing again. Now, Palace are not exactly in a great place right now, and they will have played in Europe on Thursday. So I think Fernandes is a pretty good option. It's just, how good is he as an alternative to Haaland? I'm torn between the two, Haaland and Fernandes. Part of me wants to go Fernandes to kind of push the differential angle, because most people are going to go for Haaland. But I'm not sure if this is the week to do it necessarily. Like, in some ways, the next 3 weeks could just be Haaland captaincy. So Salah for the differential, Fernandes for the differential in a pretty good match against Palace. I mean, if you look at Rob T FPL's like game week numbers he puts up on Twitter in terms of the bookies' projected goals, Man United are right up there this week. And they have played well at times under Carrick. It's just whether or not they can break Palace down if they decide to defend deep. So I think my favourite alternative to Haaland is probably Fernandes. But I think that's because most people just don't own Salah. And then in terms of alternatives like Thiago, I mean, he's playing Burnley, so it's never going to be a bad option. But if you look at his open play threat, it's about the 0.36 expected goals per 90. Like, it's half of what Haaland's is. And his Leeds away that much worse of a fixture than Burnley? I don't know if it is. So it's hard to... For me, I really like Thiago. And obviously he's going to be transferred in by a lot of people this week. He's a really good option over the next few weeks. But is he captaincy material? Probably not for me. I just don't think you can justify it over Haaland or Bruno Fernandes. That's why I've not put him in the top 3 options. And then else, I just don't think there's really anyone else to even think about this week. Like, Semenyo against... Like, this is the thing about Semenyo... like being this great pick and the best Man City pick. I think when it comes down to it, no one actually wants to captain Semenyo over Haaland. And again, I don't think there's really too much justification to do that. You're not going to go for Mbeumo over Fernandes. Unless I'm missing someone, I don't think there's anyone else to consider. If you want to take a massive punt, obviously Rayan's looking great at Sunderland at home, but he is not captaincy material for me. So Haaland is probably the obvious one, but I don't mind Fernandes. Like, right now, my captain is on Fernandes. I just don't know if I've got it in me to go through with that this week because I don't know how good of an alternative he is. So, unfortunately, it's probably got to be Haaland as the default. Even though, like, Leeds are just... I just don't know what to make. They could just turn up and make this really difficult for City. I'm really struggling to avoid all the cliches. Like, if City get an early goal, could that be floodgates open? Potentially. I just think City are capable of scoring 3, 4, 5 goals in a fixture like this. But it could also just be a 0-0 or a 1-0, something like that. Yeah, it's probably Haaland, but if you want to go different, I like Bruno Fernandes or Salah if you want to take a massive punt. So Newcastle played the second leg of their Champions League playoff game against Karabag last night. They did lose, but they played a heavily rotated side and they had such a good lead from the first leg, it didn't really matter. Interesting things to note. Voltemada played in a midfield role again, so it doesn't look like he's going to be playing number 9 that often, which obviously improves Gordon's chance to play there. But Visser was on the bench and he came on. So presumably going forward, when they can play Visser up front, they will. So if you're looking to buy Gordon because he's been playing number 9, I don't know how long that will continue for. But because he was rested in this game, he's definitely starting against Everton on the weekend. They play Saturday, then Wednesday against Man United. So I think Gordon will start both of those games. But they then do have an FA Cup match against Man City on the weekend. So it's Saturday, Everton, Wednesday, Man United, and then Saturday, Newcastle. So early subs are quite likely. And for that reason, I'm still not completely sure about Gordon as a pick. And then it's Chelsea away anyway in game week 30. I think because of the other options at the moment, like I'm going to discuss like Mbeumo, Wirtz, etc. later, I don't hate it as a differential. Like Gordon up against Sharda or Utara or Rayan, I think you can make a case to go different for Gordon. I'm just a little bit unconvinced about how good of a pick he is with those early subs and the fact he plays Chelsea away. But if you want to take a punt, I don't think it's the worst thing you could do. Elsewhere, Chow got a rest as well. Like, he looks like the best defender from Newcastle moving forward. Lewis Hall also got a rest. Alex Murphy played instead. But I think at this point, if you've got Hall, then maybe you keep for Everton at home and possibly all the way to 31 for Sunderland at home. But no one should be buying him right now. Otherwise, not a huge amount to talk about from this game. And in general, midweek, it's been quite a quiet week so far. So there's not a huge amount of news and information to talk about at the moment. So I'm just going to jump straight into your questions instead. So with the hot form of João Pedro versus Thiago's blank streak, is it still worth making the move for the fixture swing? And I had quite a few questions about João Pedro's form and whether people should sell him. So what I thought I would do is read the fixtures that João Pedro's had recently. So game week 22, he scored against Brentford at home. That's when this run of form started. That was followed by Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. I'm sure most of you get the point that I'm trying to make here. Yes, he's literally in form because he's done really well recently, but maybe the fixtures have played a part in that. Like, I've owned Thiago for quite a while, and a lot of people talked about the Thiago to João Pedro switch a few weeks ago because of the fixtures to then switch back. So what's changed? Like, João Pedro's done well, probably in part because he's had really great fixtures. So instead of having Burnley at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away, West Ham at home, which is what the last 4 fixtures have been, it's now Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, followed by City at home, Man United at home. Whereas Thiago, Burnley away, Bournemouth away, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Everton at home, Fulham at home, Man United away, West Ham at home. Like, if you were picking one on wildcard right now, like, I wouldn't even think about João Pedro. And I understand that I've not owned him all season and it's not always been great. And maybe there's a bit of subconscious bias there. It's not even a question about which one you buy. So if you've got a spare transfer, you sell João Pedro to Thiago. If your plan was to get João Pedro for the good fixtures, why should that plan now change? Because he's like, you bought him in because of fixtures. He's done what you wanted him to do with those good fixtures. Now it's Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away. Could he do well in some of those fixtures? Of course. But my money would be on Thiago quite easily. So, yeah, I'm not really bothered about form. That comes and goes. I think my preference is always to target fixtures. Mostly, right, there will always be some scenarios where you don't sell a player through bad fixtures because you haven't got transfers or there's other stuff to deal with. But for those of you sat there with spare transfers, João Pedro to Thiago, it looks pretty obvious to me. I already have Wilson and Anderson, and I'm considering getting Raúl Jiménez next week too. Is 3 Fulham too much in the run-up to wildcard 32? If you're absolutely sure that's the week you're going to wildcard, then no, there's no issue having 3 players when they've got Spurs at home, West Ham at home, Forest away, Burnley at home. Those fixtures look pretty good. The only thing I would say about Raúl Jiménez in particular, I know he's just done really well and scored a couple of goals. He's first choice penalty taker. He's only 6.1 million as well. So he's a pretty good price. The problem is that Muniz is back now. So his minutes take a bit of a hit. So if you look back a few weeks ago, he was playing 90, 90, 87, 90, 84, etc. Last 2 weeks, 64, 59, and then before that, 74. So Muniz will eat into his minutes. So it's all well and good when he scores 2 goals in 64 minutes. But on those weeks where he gets subbed before the 60th, or he hasn't got a return, then he gets subbed at 65 or 70, that could be frustrating. So if you specifically need a really cheap forward right now, because it just fits into your structure, you could consider him. But for most people, I just wouldn't rush to go there, despite how good the fixtures are. And I think you could even make an argument that from game week 29, Calvert-Lewin is a better pick because his minutes will be better and he's also on penalties as well. So Raúl Jiménez, in theory, not a bad option. And I think if you were looking to force a bench boost soon and you wanted to upgrade like a Guiu to a different forward, then Raúl Jiménez on your bench for like West Ham at home in 29 or whatever it might be, that's not bad, even with the limited minutes. But I wouldn't be going out of my way to get him. I think if you can go to Thiago or Ekitike, who I appreciate a lot more money, but if you can afford that, that is probably where I would spend my cash instead. So is Kerkez a differential option for Liverpool? He's so attacking. Not for me. And this is the reason. Look at game week 26, Sunderland away. He got benched and Robertson played instead. Now, you can see from Kerkez's minutes that doesn't happen very often. There is every chance that Kerkez starts the next 5 to 6 game weeks and you don't have any issues. But for me, it's just not worth taking that risk. If you're not looking to use a chip in game week 31, imagine if Slot plays Robertson instead. You're already struggling to put out 11 players, then you lose Kerkez. That could be really frustrating. Now, against Sunderland, he got no minutes off the bench. So if you had someone good on your bench, that was obviously a positive thing. But in game week 31, most people are not going to be stacked with players on the bench. So it's just not worth it. Also, I don't know if he really is that attacking. At least the numbers don't suggest that, right? I know he might look like he gets forward a lot, but 0.05 expected goals per 90, 0.03 expected assists. That's not really the numbers I would expect from someone that's very attacking. And he did get a lot of attacking returns last year, but I think he also overperformed a little bit. So the minutes are not at massive risk, but there is the odd game that he could miss. He's not that attacking, and he's not great for defensive contributions either. I just think this season, because defensive contributions have been added, and because they're up across the board, so players in general are getting more DEFCONs than they did last year, and the fact there's not that many good attacking fullbacks, I just don't know how you can justify Kerkez over Van Dijk. And I know Van Dijk's being brought in by a lot of people. He's nowhere near a differential or anything like that. But I just don't think Kerkez is the alternative, unfortunately. So he could do really well, and I'm sure this will come back to bite me when he scores against West Ham. But if we're forgetting the differential like part of this conversation, there is absolutely no way I would buy Kerkez over Van Dijk. So are there any Arsenal, Man City or Palace players worth selling in advance of game week 31? I'm considering Saliba to Konate to double up on the Liverpool defence. With Man City in particular, the next 3 games ahead of the blank are Leeds away, Forest at home, West Ham away. Realistically, you're not selling any of those players like Haaland, Semenyo, O'Reilly. The only way I would sell a Man City player is if you've got someone that's a minute stout, like Cherky or Foden or someone like that. If it's Donnarumma or Nunes or O'Reilly or Gay or Semenyo or Haaland, you just keep and you sell them in game week 31. And the beauty in the current game of FPL is you can roll up to 5 transfers, so there's no need to rush these players out. With Arsenal, again, if you've got the likes of Timber, Gabriel, Rice, or even Saka, some of you might have him still, I think they're more than reasonable to keep for the next 3. Like Chelsea at home, Brighton away, Everton at home is just not that big of a deal. Like Arsenal, to me, is still the best defence in the league. There is every chance they walk away with from the next 3 games with 1 or 2 clean sheets. They are absolutely capable of doing that. So I still think Timber's an okay pick. I still think Gabriel is absolutely... And in fact, Gabriel shouldn't even be part of the conversation. There's no way you should be selling him. And Rice is also fine. I will say with Rice, there's not really a massive need to hold him through the blank, I don't think. Like, he's a good pick, but there's lots of good midfielders. So as soon as you want to go for someone else, I think you can sell him. So I might sell him this week. If not, I might sell him in 29. I don't think he's like Semenyo, where you want to hold him all the way up to the blank. So it's kind of, this isn't me trying to sit on the fence, but I genuinely think with Arsenal players, you can go either way. It's absolutely fine to keep them. You could sell them if you wanted to, but I'd be a lot less keen on selling Saka unless I need the money because he's a huge differential. And Gabriel is obviously just great. And Ray is a boring goalkeeper, so you don't really want to make too many goalkeeper transfers. Saliba is a little bit different because he's not great from an attacking point of view and he's not great for defcons. So if you want to double up on the Liverpool defence as a differential, I think that's fine. But I'll tell you now, the bookmakers' odds and stuff like that, they will have Arsenal as one of the best for clean sheets every week for the next 3. With Palace, depends who you've got. If you're sat there with Strand Larsen and he was a 2-week punt for Burnley and Wolves and you're going to look to sell him on to someone like Thiago or Ekitike, I would just do it. Man United away, Spurs away, next 2 fixtures. They're not terrible, but they're not great either. I don't think Strand Larsen is so good you've got to hold him for Leeds at home. If you've got a defender like Richards, Munoz, or Lacroix, I think it depends probably how much you have to play them. So, for example, I'm probably going to bench Munoz this week because I'm not struggling for money for the moves that I want to make. And then I'll probably play him against Spurs. And then I'll definitely play him against Leeds at home. And then I'll probably sell him in game week 31 itself. If you're in a position where your defense is not looking great, maybe you've got some injured players already on your bench and you're being forced to play like Richards against Man United away, Spurs away and Leeds at home, and you've got a spare transfer to move to Hill or Joachim Anderson, I would probably do that. With Sarr, I'd be tempted to keep, I think, because I think he's on penalties. And I know Palace haven't been great recently, but he's a big differential. He's arguably on penalties while Mateta is out. And I think from an attacking point of view, those fixtures are better than from a defensive one. So I'd be tempted to keep Sarr. But again, if you're sat there with a couple of transfers and you want to go for Dangu Tara or Sharda because they're about to play Burnley away, or you want to get Harry Wilson in ahead of the probable price rises that are coming because he's got 3 home fixtures in the next 4, it's absolutely fine to do that. But it is in no way a must-do transfer. So with Palace, I think Sarr I'd probably keep. I mean, Munoz I'd be tempted to keep as well, just because he can be so attacking, even though he hasn't been the last 2 games. But everyone else, yeah, probably more a sell if you've got the transfer. But I don't think any of these players should be a panic sell. Like, nobody should be taking hits, in my opinion, to sell Palace, Arsenal or City players. Not right now, anyway. So with game week 31 in mind, is it considered a luxury move to transfer out Sanchez? I'm currently on the Sanchez-Dubravka goalkeeper combination. Goalkeeper transfers in general are just quite boring. There's so little upside to doing them, especially if you've still got your wildcard in hand. Because if you're going to play up to game weeks 31, 32 and then wildcard, you can just fix your goalkeepers then. Also, on the Sanchez-Dubravka combination, that's not that bad for game week 31 because you'll get to play Sanchez against Everton away, whereas those of us with like Raya and Dubravka will have to play Dubravka, which is never that great. And I know this week is not ideal because you've got to either play Dubravka, who's playing for one of the worst teams in the league, or Sanchez against Arsenal away. But after that, I think it's kind of okay. Honestly, like if you wanted to play Sanchez every week, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, 29-31, it's fine. Like, is Kelleher a better option? Yes, but is that worth a transfer? Not in my opinion. I think there's way more interesting things you can do with your transfer. Either use it to improve an attacker over this run, or just save it post wildcard. There will still be interesting stuff to do in the latter stages of the season, especially when the title race is still open. The race for the Champions League spots is still ongoing. We're not likely to get, on current projections, a huge amount of rotation as soon as we hit like 33, 34, 35, etc. So the only way I'd make a goalkeeper move right now is if one of them got injured. And even then, I'd just be tempted to play Dubravka every week. So, yeah, no chance. Like, even people that have got like, I don't know, Verbruggen and Dubravka, for example, I don't think I would move to Kelleher. I mean, if I look at Brighton's upcoming fixtures, because I know a lot of people have got that combination, Brighton have got, I mean, you're not going to do it this week anyway, right? It's Forest at home. Then they've got Arsenal at home in 29 and Liverpool at home in 31. But I just think you play Dubravka if you're really that worried. And worst case scenario, Verbruggen probably gets saves in these games. I just don't think there's any goalkeeper out there that's worth moving to, basically. So who are the best premium midfielders now? Is it Mbeumo or Wirtz, or are none of them good and we should just buy the cheaper ones instead? So the best premium midfielder based on fixtures right now is probably Salah. because the next 3 look good and he plays in game week 31. But my guess is a lot of people can't get to him very easily, and I don't think it's worth selling Haaland. So we can rule him out. If you've got Palmer and you don't need the cash, I would be tempted to hold on to him just because he's a huge differential. But I don't think anyone should be looking to bring him in right now, especially with Arsenal away next. And obviously with Saka, he looks okay for the next 3, but then he blanks in game week 31. So you've probably got to ignore him too. So then, yes, you are down to the premium-ish midfielders like Mbeumo and Wirtz. The problem with Wirtz is he picked up an injury ahead of the game against Forest in game week 27. So you don't know right now whether he's going to be fit. And even if Slot does say he's available, it's a Saturday, then Tuesday game for Liverpool. So they play Saturday, then they play again on Tuesday. So I think if Slot says Wirtz is absolutely fine, there is a good chance he starts both games, but there is going to be some slight risk there. And in that case, I would argue whether or not it's really worth taking that risk when you've got a blank in 31 to come, and there are lots of good alternatives for a cheap price. So I think right now I'd have to say you cannot buy Wirtz unless Slot is super positive on Friday. Now, if you've got Wirtz, don't panic, because if Slot says he's okay, obviously you keep him for West Ham at home. But I'm talking about buying here. With Mbeumo, I think this was one thing I was meant to discuss the other day when I was talking about the cheap midfielders in the transfer tips video. What if you've got the money to go for Mbeumo instead? Should you do that? I think Mbeumo is better than the likes of Sharda, Utara, Wilson, Rayan, etc. But I don't know if he's so good I would spend an extra transfer to get him. So let's say you're struggling for cash and there's a downgrade you can make somewhere else to get Mbeumo instead. I don't know if that's worth it. Like if I had 2 transfers and it was used both to get Mbeumo or just one and get one of those cheap midfielders, I think my preference would be to roll the transfer right now because there's so much going on with the blank in 31 and then doubling blank game week information to come later on. So Mbeumo is good. And I think even for 8.7 million, he can kind of justify that. But I wouldn't want to break my team up to get him in. Like it is Palace at home this week, which is probably okay. Then it's Newcastle away, then Villa at home, then Bournemouth away in the blank. It's an okay fixture run. And I've got no intention to sell Mbeumo for what it's worth. But it's not as good as some of the other teams have. Like Fulham's fixtures are better. Brentford's fixtures are better as well. So it's one of those situations where going cheap is more than reasonable right now. And that might leave you a bit more flexible for future moves where maybe you need that cash. And I know right now there probably is no need for that money. And honestly, I cannot see where the need for that money is coming from anytime soon, at least up until blank game week 31, but you never know. So yeah, I wouldn't Salah, like if you've got Palmer and you can go to Salah in one move and it doesn't hurt the rest of your team, I don't mind it. But no one should be using 2 or 3 transfers to get him. Don't buy Palmer, don't buy Saka, maybe Mbeumo, possibly Wirtz if he's past fit by Slot on Friday. Otherwise, yeah, just go cheap. And by the way, I know I've not talked about those cheap midfielders in this video, but I did discuss them for about 9 minutes in yesterday's transfer tips video, if you want to check that out. I'm going to leave it there. It's been quite a quiet game week in terms of questions, and most of the other stuff I've already covered in early thoughts and transfer tips. So if you enjoyed that one and found it useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Team selection tomorrow, final thoughts on Friday. I'll see you then.